right, ladies and gentlemen, how is everyone doing tonight? Welcome back to The Catch. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Hope everyone had a great Wednesday. Hope you guys are ready for the 2024 NFL season to kick off tomorrow night between the Ravens and the Chiefs. And hope you guys are ready for the 2024 fantasy season to finally kick off tomorrow night officially. You know what we're doing tonight, week 1 fantasy Q&A, anything that you guys need, start, sits, waiver wire, trades, team reviews. Are you drafting tonight? Probably the last chance to get a draft in, unless you're going to draft tomorrow morning. Any fantasy football questions? Redraft Dynasty Best Ball. It's that time of year, ladies and gentlemen. It's officially here, almost. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk some fantasy football. So get in the live chat. You know, even if you guys don't necessarily have questions, let me know like what your team's looking like, how confident you're feeling moving into week 1. And all that good stuff. Let's just get some fantasy debate going. Let's have some fun tonight before week 1 and talk some fantasy football. Okay. Couple things to go over in terms of news. Main thing, well, maybe not the main thing, but big thing for me at least, is going to be the Kyle Pitts injury. Okay. This is such a weird injury report to me because Kyle Pitts came out and said that it is not going to, he's going to miss 1 to 2 plays. I don't think I've ever heard a player say that. But Kyle Pitts comes out and says that this injury is just going to lead to him missing 1 or 2 plays. I don't even know what that means. I don't know if I read that report wrong, like he missed 1 or 2 plays in practice and that was it. Or if he's, I don't understand this. Let me know if I read that wrong. And he was just going to miss 1 or 2 plays in practice. But if he's going to miss 1 or 2 plays in week 1, I'm like, what does it even, how do we even evaluate that? But Kyle Pitts, the hamstring injury popping up here. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to freak out about this. I am in I think I have Kyle Pitts in 2 leagues. And in 1 league, I went out and I already panicked. I dropped Josh Downs, who I have really good wide receiver depth. I have 6 wide receivers in front of Josh Downs. But I still like Josh Downs, and I felt like he was a good value where I drafted him. But dropped him for Taysom Hill, just in case. So I think you want to monitor the situation closely. This would probably be a game time decision for Pitts, I would imagine. So we'll just kind of have to see here, but maybe don't panic too much on Kyle Pitts just yet. I don't know. Let me know how you guys feel. It's like the first year I actually draft Kyle Pitts that week 1 this happens. Okay, let me know how the Kyle Pitts situation is potentially affecting you guys. Jamar Chase practiced today? Walked to practice? Can we trust Jamar Chase week 1 is the real question. We know we're not going to know about Jamar Chase until Sunday, I think, at this point. So, I mean, every report you get from a Bengals player or coach is if he plays, he's going to be great. And everyone keeps saying if. So, I don't really know. But my viewpoint right now is if Jamar Chase plays, you should still start him in fantasy. So, I don't think I'm much better than the coach speak or player speak that we're getting. Brock Bowers has been dealing with that foot injury, but he's going to play week 1. He's good to go. If you own Bowers, you're starting him, or you can start him, I guess I should say. And then Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Vikings, came out and said that he feels good about Addison being able to play week 1. So it looks like if you do own Jordan Addison, he's probably going to play. And I like Jordan Addison in this game. If you need to flex Jordan Addison, I do think you can start Jordan Addison this week against the Giants on the road. He's shown good chemistry with Sam Darnold. And yeah, I think Addison, if you have to, you don't have anyone better. Talked about this in the start sit video. I do think that you can go ahead and roll with him. So Addison looks like he's going to play for those of you who took a chance on him in drafts. Now, will he get suspended? Oh, time will tell. All right, guys, any fantasy football questions? Week 1 fantasy football questions, get them in the live chat. And in the meantime, I'll also be going over like underdog pick'ems that I like for week 1, but also just going over matchups, players that I like in week 1 in general. And we'll have some fun tonight. Talk some fantasy football. Emil, how are we doing tonight? Big David, what's up, man? How good do you think Kyler and Marvin Harrison could do in week 1? Well, I'm not really afraid of the Bills defense right now. I think they still have good coaching staff there, but this team on paper right now just does not scare me defensively. I think they're going to have a down year defensively, and I think most people feel that way. You got Taylor Rapp at full safety. Corners you got Rasul Douglas, Kamir Elam. I just don't know. DeMar Hamlin's going to be the starting strong safety. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but I think they're both going to have good, solid performances Sunday for sure. Yeah, I'm going to expect like 18 plus points out of Kyler in this. I think that the Cardinals are going to push back offensively for sure. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm expecting double digits. Whether he scores a touchdown or not, I'm not sure. But I think that the volume and the receptions will definitely be there week 1 for Marvin Harrison Jr. So they'll be fine. If you're starting them, they're fine. Tom, I'm in a PPR and torn between starting Mostert or Najee. I think Najee's fine this week. So when we look on paper, the Falcons were the 5th best team against the run last year. Well, gave up the 5th fewest fantasy points to running backs, I should say. Then on the other hand, when we look at that matchup between the Jags and the Dolphins, the Jaguars gave up the 16th most points. So they're kind of right in the middle there. So weaker defense for the Jaguars. Plus, the Dolphins are at home where the Steelers are traveling to Atlanta. I think Najee is fine this week if you're forced to start him, as is Jaylen Warren. But I think this Falcons defense going to have a good day as the week has gone on. I feel like they're going to have a good day. But for me, you go Mostert here because the matchup's better, but also because the game script for that matchup offensively, I think, will be better. I think we're going to see more points scored. The Dolphins Jaguars, one of these games this week that I feel like you're going to get plenty of points scored. So I would rather go Mostert. Taylor's stash is looking epic. I can't really lie. It is kind of looking epic these days. So, but I appreciate it. It's been I don't really know. The mustache kind of just came out last year and I've been rolling with it since. Meal says after watching what Mostert did last year, you kind of have to start him. Yeah, I think a lot of people still view Najee as like if you drafted him, he's an RB2. But I would rather start Mostert. I agree with that. Kobe, what's going on, man? Any week 1 questions you got? Throw them in here. Would you start Connor or Mostert? Once again, I like Mostert. I mean, I personally have this Jaguars Dolphins game circled for this week. Like some people kind of viewing it as like a lower tier game, but I think this is a game with points. You know, I think Connor's fine. The Bills come in 17th against the run, so not much better, or 17th to fantasy running backs last year, so not much better than the Jaguars. And like, I do think Connor's going to be, leaned on in this game. At the end of the day, this is the true workhorse running back for the Cardinals. So, if you're forced to start Connor, like there's no problem with it, but I do think Mostert gives more upside, and like I could easily see, Connor stumbling into the end zone. Like I think he's a pretty safe start this week, but at the end of the day, I prefer Mostert. I really like Mostert this week. So in the start sit video, he's one of the names that came up where I ended up kind of being like, if you own Mostert, I think you should, you can consider flexing him, because I do think he has that type of upside this week. So, I probably go Mostert. Kobe, you got to check out my dynasty team. Can't believe I didn't win last year. Albert, what's going on? So it's a 12-team, 1 quarterback, 3 flex. Richardson, Gino, CMC, Brees, Pacheco, Cook, White, Spears, Corum, Amon-Ra, Adams, Waddle, Ayuk, Diggs, Dell, Dobbs, J-Mo, Polk, Laporta, Kelsey. Yeah. So single quarterback. Yeah. 3 flex. I mean, I can see why you didn't win last year. You had no quarterback. That's really what it came down to. It's a triple flex, so I can see that adding a lot of variation to like weekly matchups. But I mean, this year you're rolling out AR, CMC, Brees, Amon-Ra, I guess probably Adams, then Waddle, Ayuk. See, this is what's tough. You have 3 flexes, but like you can flex Cook and White and Pacheco, as well as Waddle, Ayuk, Dell, Diggs, Dobbs, J-Mo, and Kelsey. Because I mean, who tight end is? I don't know. Like, it's a great team. It is, but at the same time, how do you manage this team on a weekly basis? It's almost too good of a team. I would almost try to tier up and get another quarterback on this team. I mean, not saying trade Anthony Richardson, but I mean, you don't even really need like too much out of your quarterback play on this type of squad. So, but yeah, I mean, seeing like the 4 dynasty leagues I'm in, and really just being in so many different leagues, like I'm never surprised, even when a really stacked team doesn't win the championship, just because there's so much variation and influx on a week-to-week basis. And once you get to the championship, sometimes it's just like, did you have Amari Cooper week 16 or whatever? Did you have George Pickens that week? And did you have CeeDee Lamb in the championship or not? But still a very good team. I mean, I would feel very confident if I were you moving into the season. Would you drop B-Tom or Dowdle for McLaughlin, Lloyd, Wright, Mason? No, not even close. No, I'd much rather have Brian Thomas or Dowdle for sure. For sure. I mean, you're going to get immediate work out of both of those players. Everyone else you listed as a handcuff. Amari Cooper or Mostert? Snoopy, what's up? I'm still going Coop. I like Mostert a lot. We've got a lot of Mostert questions tonight. But Cooper, you got to look at this Cowboys defense. So Deron Bland not going to be there. But Diggs will be there. Trayvon Diggs, not Stephon Diggs. But that's you know, what he get hurt he got hurt in the preseason last year. That's right. But yeah, I mean, so you've got that, right? This Cowboys secondary, I don't know if they're going to be as stout as they were last year necessarily, but also Dan Quinn is not the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys anymore. And I'm not really too spooked by the rest of this secondary. You know, like I said, Deron Bland, is on IR. Diggs will play. I mean, then you're looking at Malik Hooker, who's been relatively disappointing. Oh, Malik Hooker's not even. Oh no, he's playing. My bad. I don't know. Point is, Dan Quinn's gone. I don't know. Cooper should be in a good position here. The Browns are at home, and if it's full PPR, like you still got to go Cooper. I like Mostert, but I go Coop. Half PPR, choose one at flex, Deontay Ridley or Zach Moss. I would personally start Deontay. I think the other two options are fine in the flex, but best volume, going to go to Deontay. So if you want to risk it for a little bit more upside, I think you could go Ridley, but as long as it's full PPR, I'm flexing the wide receivers here. Nick, CMC or Hill or Bijan? I mean, I'm still going C-Mac if he's there. So for me, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey. If all these players are fine, you know, I mean, we're kind of sad, but we're like past draft season. I mean, tomorrow's going to mark the end of draft season other than, you know, in season tournaments. But I said throughout the whole offseason, you know, these guys, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, Breece Hall, all fine wherever you want them in the first round. If you have to draft them at the 1-2 or the 1-3, that's okay. But yeah, if you're asking for my preference, it's CMC. If you have a different preference, that's okay. Trust your gut. Would you start Ayuk or Kirk or Roma Dunze? So this is a tough question. I do think Roma Dunze is looking sneakier and sneakier as we get into week one. I've been talking about him throughout the week a little bit, and I do like Roma Dunze. I wish I drafted a bit more of him. Keenan Allen's now dealing with an injury. I think a heel injury. I don't know if it's going to matter, but I don't know. Signs are pointing to Roma Dunze, his favor, right? So the Titans 24th against opposing wide receivers last year. It's a good spot for the Bears wide receivers. Plus, all that immediate defensive pressure is going to go to DJ Moore, we would assume. And then we'll see if Allen, I mean, I think Allen will probably still play, but on the other hand, the Dolphins gave the 22nd most points to opposing wide receivers last year. So Christian Kirk, I think, is a smash play too. I really like Kirk this week. Now, there was a report that came out basically like saying something about like Brian Thomas Jr. being listed as the wide receiver 1, and then Gabe Davis being listed as the wide receiver 2, and then Kirk being listed as the wide receiver 3. And there was a point last offseason that happened too with Ridley, Jones, and Kirk, and that's because Kirk primarily plays in the slot. So if you saw that, if you're a Brian Thomas Jr. like believer and owner, I wouldn't necessarily overreact to it. And if you're a Christian Kirk owner, I wouldn't get like scared off of Christian Kirk. This is still Trevor Lawrence's number 1 target in this offense easily. So I still love Kirk. I think Rome's in a good spot. And then Ayuk is the tough one because the Jets gave up the fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers last year. So I think the volume's still there for Ayuk. Is Sauce Gardner going to travel? Is he going to be on Ayuk throughout the whole game. Still got Debo out there. Definitely a tough question. I actually still think the safest play here is Christian Kirk, but I also like the game script the best. I think both the Dolphins and the Jaguars will be keeping up with each other offensively in this game. I see more points scored where, I think the Bears score more points than the Titans. I don't know if they necessarily keep up. And then I think that the Niners-Jets game is going to be a little bit lower scoring. So that's a tough one. All these guys are fine. You can't really go wrong. The volume should still be there for Ayuk. Kirk's in a good matchup. Will have the volume. Then Adunze, even if the volume's not there, I think the upside's there. And he has a good matchup. But I think I'd start Christian Kirk. George, what's going on? 12-team non-PPR. Have Kyler and Kirk go. Should I drop Cousins for Ray Davis or Jordan Mason? I mean, you can. You're scooping up a handcuff. That's about all you're doing. The way to look at this is, if Cousins is on your bench, you're probably not starting Cousins because you're going to start Kyler Murray. His perceived upside is higher on a weekly basis. And so Cousins just kind of taking up a bench spot. On the other hand, if you pick up Ray Davis or Jordan Mason, they're going to take up a bench spot too. I mean, these are handcuff running, unless we just see an immediate switch up in week 1, which I don't think we will, but they're going to be handcuffs, right? And I mean, the other factor is, if something happens to Kyler because he is injury prone, doesn't run the football, then you have Kirk Cousins right behind him. Cousins, tough to look at right now. I mean, Cousins was averaging 21 fantasy points per game last year before he got hurt. And you could argue at least he's in a better situation now. I mean, Justin Jefferson's not there, so I don't know. And Addison's a great wide receiver too, but now Kyle Pitts is hurt. So you could argue it. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I think I prefer to just keep Cousins here because I still think Cousins is going to be really good this year and be like a solid QB2 for your squad. But if you want to go get the handcuff, I think there's probably a chance at similar quarterbacks to emerge on, if there's guys if you look at your waiver wire and it's Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers are all out there. I mean, how many teams are really all season long going to hold 2 quarterbacks? Someone always gets dropped once bye weeks and injuries start to hit. So you can kind of, if your running back room is really hurting that bad, then you can, sure. Full PPR, who would you start, Chase Brown, Chuba, or Dowdle? I mean, I'm not starting Chase Brown in week 1. Chase Brown is not the RB1 for the Bengals. He might be halfway through the season, but I think too many people have appointed Chase Brown as the RB1 for the Bengals. He's not listed as the RB1 either. He's going to be used in the return game, which is okay. But Zach Moss is the RB1. So I get it. It's an intriguing matchup against, we're expecting the Bengals to outscore the Patriots here at home for sure. So maybe Brown does see some involvement in week 1, but until we see a volume that we can rely on, I'm not starting Chase Brown. You didn't draft him to start right away. You drafted him for the perceived upside as the season goes on. So you got to look at guys who are going to get better volume. That's Chuba or Dowdle. I think the best volume out of any of these running backs is Chuba Hubbard. So, I mean, it's not a fantastic matchup, and I'm not super confident in the Panthers this week. The Saints gave up the 10th fewest fantasy points to running backs last year. And this is interesting because then you got Dowdle, who, the Browns defense at home, not great, but they gave up the 18th most fantasy points. So not good, not awful, but you can work with it. But then it's like, are you worried about Zeke getting involved? Are you worried about? I mean, I personally don't think Dalvin Cook is going to touch the football once this Sunday or anytime soon. He's a depth piece. You know, it's Dowdle, Zeke still. So I think you could go with Dowdle. But I think I'd look at volume here, and I think I'd go Chuba. But really, with these three, like you're crossing your fingers that they stumble into the end zone. And I think volume is going to be king here. I probably go Chuba. Trade Aaron Jones, Flowers for James Cook and Gabe Davis. Have 3 strong wide receivers, but need a better RB2. I mean, you could. I definitely prefer James Cook over Aaron Jones. I hate to lose Zay Flowers. And, like, here's the problem is even if Gabe Davis does emerge in the Jaguars offense as like a guy who does Gabe Davis type things and has those performances that are, you know, start worthy, how consistent are those starts going to be? You know what I mean? It's like, are you really going to end up trusting Gabe Davis in your starting lineup ever? So it's like, I hate trading for Gabe Davis because I feel like there's no value whatsoever in that trade. You know what I mean? Because when are you ever going to be confident starting Gabe Davis? I don't know. Maybe his role this year makes him a little bit more, reliable, but I doubt it. So I mean, I think it really depends on the full roster. So you have Puka, Wilson, Waddle. I see here. I don't know. Like, I think I just keep Aaron Jones and Flowers. I do because, I mean, Aaron Jones has a good matchup week 1. I think he's going to get you through week 1. So maybe you can sell him high after week 1, anyways. And then I just still prefer Flowers. The thing I try to remind you guys of this time of year is if you have depth at a position, that's good. You don't have to get rid of that depth. This is a time of season where you want depth on your roster because in a couple weeks, things are going to happen. Injuries are going to happen. People are going to end up being busts. We're going to get offenses like Arthur Smith's offense. Like, like things are going to be confusing and you're going to want depth. So I prefer just to keep Jones and Flowers here. I mean, I like James Cook a lot. I think Cook is going to have a really good year. So, but I think you're getting too weak of a return with Gabe Davis. Like, I get that you're tearing up at running back, but Aaron Jones in drafts still went like, and some drafts a round later than Cook, but I say most drafts 2 rounds later, if not 3. But like it's not like you're completely like massively tearing up there. And then Flowers, like people are so harsh on Zay Flowers, but Flowers was on a roll last year before the playoffs started. So, and like he has that like stain on him for the playoff game, which he was also playing really well in before the fumble and everything. But I mean, Zay Flowers week 12 through the end of the season had 19.6 or more 19.6 fantasy points in 4 or 5 matchups. So 4 of the 5 final games he played in, because they had a weird bye week in week 13. 4 of those games he had 19.6 or more fantasy points. So I still really like Flowers this year. So I wouldn't necessarily like undervalue what he brings to the table too. So yeah, I just hold. Full PPR, start Dell or Waddle. I love both these guys this week. I don't think you can really go wrong. In tomorrow's video that'll come out, it's week 1 wide receiver winners. If I'm not mistaken, both players are on it. Yeah. So maybe I just put Kirk, but I think I put Waddle too. Like I think I just like that matchup so much. But Dell is the upside. I mean, they both have nice upside this week, but Waddle out of these two is the more like kind of consistent piece who still has a nice ceiling. And then Dell is just kind of the overall like upside type piece. So um yeah, I think I go Waddle, but it's super close. And I don't think you're really making a wrong decision. Both are fine. What is the over under on how many times they'll play the BK commercial? Oh, BK. My guess is 37.5. That I only watch NFL Red Zone, so well, I guess and then the primetime games. So yeah, we're probably going to see a lot of commercial action. You're not wrong. It's going to be a high grossing weekend, I'm sure. All right, Dre and Doctor. Need a flex. Neighbors, Rice, Deontay, or Ford. Yeah, good options. Half PPR. I think you could go Jerome Ford here. I really like him against the Cowboys this week. So if you wanted to go Ford, half PPR is where I'm like, I'm okay if you just flex a running back. But I think ultimately my favorite player out of this bunch is still Rashee Rice. It's a tough matchup here. The Ravens gave up the fifth fewest fantasy points to wide receivers last year. I mean, it's kind of like the Brandon Ayuk. It's like, or Debo is like but the volume is going to be there. Like we know that for sure. So, it's maybe close here, but I think you can still roll Rashee Rice out there. And if you want to go Jerome Ford, that's okay too. But those are the two I prefer in half PPR. Neighbors is interesting. I mean, I still think he has some touchdown upside against the Vikings defense, but he's also got Daniel Jones as quarterback. So Kobe need to start two. Half PPR, Moss, Chuba, Worthy, Roma Dunze. Half PPR, once again, if you want to go Moss and Hubbard, I'm okay with it. Honestly, like, and I think Moss is going to have a good day. I think like in a half PPR format, you probably have to roll with Moss against the Patriots. I just think Moss is one of those players this week. Like even if the ceiling's not super high, he's just in a solid spot. So, but I was gonna say if you want to just, go for upside here, you can throw Xavier Worthy and Roma Dunze in your flex options, or wherever you need to start them. And I'm okay with it. Like you're taking a risk, especially with two rookie wide receivers here, but man, like the upside is nice with both of those. Roma Dunze against the against the Titans, who allowed the 24th most fantasy points to wide receivers last year. And then I think Xavier Worthy is going to be one of these players, like really, regardless of matchup, we're going to find ourselves at times like, yeah, I want to start Xavier Worthy anyways, So even against the Ravens, I don't know if I'm super like off of it, but I do think sometimes with these rookie wide receivers, you see lower volume in the first week outside of guys like Neighbors and MH Jr. Probably going to get their volume either way, but Roma Dunze is still on paper the wide receiver 3 there, and then Worthy wide receiver 2 right now, but I don't know. They're tough to evaluate. If you want to throw a dart, I think you could go Worthy in a Dunze, but I think in half PPR, I would stick with Zach Moss as one of the options, and then whoever you like best out of the two wide receivers. Would you start Ridley or Rice? I would start Rashee Rice. I mean, once again, it's like when we're looking at Worthy, we're looking at Rice. Yeah, tough matchup, but tied to Patrick Mahomes, tied to the Chiefs offense. It's just like, I mean, this is why we drafted them. Like, are we really worried that they're facing the Ravens? They're at home. It's Thursday night football. It's the first game of the year. Like, there's going to be some fireworks in this game. I don't know what the over is at right now, but I would probably prefer the over. So yeah, I go Rice. I think it's I think Ridley's okay this week, but I have him as a flex. Yeah, I just think when you look at it, on the road here, and like I like the Titans this year, but I don't know here in week 1 on the road. The Bears, middle of the pack, 16th allowed points to wide receivers last year. I think they're going to be even better defensively this year, excuse me. So I don't know if I feel great about Ridley unless you're forced to flex him. So I prefer Rashee Rice. Higgins, Monty, Scary, Terry. What's going on in Savvy? I'll go Higgins. I think McLaurin's fine. I do think Monty's still okay this week, but I go Higgins. Yeah, I love Higgins against the Patriots this week. I actually like him more if Jamar Chase plays. Call me crazy, but it's just like, you know, what's the defensive pressure here? Next to nothing. Um, so but even if Chase does not play, then that's still a good thing. I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to keep up with the Bengals. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Higgins. Is one of those guys this week that I just feel really good about. I think he's a player that you have to have in your starting lineup. So for me, it's easily Higgins. I do like McLaurin, but I think we also have to remind ourselves like this is you know a road game for a rookie quarterback. Um, the Buccaneers defense not fantastic or anything, especially their secondary. So I think there's opportunity, but Burrow at home, the Bengals at home. Patriots might be the worst team in the league this year. I'll go Higgins. How would you rate my team? 12-team PPR. We got Lamar, Marvo, Pickens, JT, Monty, Laporta, Javante. Not bad. B. Tom, Shakir, Palmer, Myers, Chandler, Brooks on the bench. Yeah, you're kind of must have been a pretty competitive draft. You're just a light, like wide receiver is just what worries me here because like Marvin Harrison Jr. fine, but still rookie. Pickens as your wide receiver 2 is like a little risky for me. Then you're flexing Javante Williams, which I don't prefer in full PPR. Then you look at your bench wide receivers, like you got names that can definitely be productive this year that I like, but I don't like when they're like my 4 wide receivers and I have to consider flexing one or maybe at times even starting one wide receiver 2. So this is a tough team. I mean, obviously you're fine at quarterback and tight end. It's a team that can definitely get through, but you're gonna have to really work out this wide receiver room. If all these guys hit, you're fine. You've got the running back depth, but I mean, like I said, I like Brian Thomas Jr. I like Shakir, Palmer, Myers, but I prefer to have like 2 out of 4 of those guys. I guess going quarterback and tight end early is probably what made this team what it is, you know. But yeah, Marvin Harrison Pickens is I prefer Pickens in the flex. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is fine, but I prefer Pickens in the flex. So I'll give it a 7. But it could work out. Tone Bear, what's up? We got Kyler, C-Mac, Kyron, Puka, London, Laporta, Olave. The bench is Waddle, Rice, Dell, Zamir, Warren, Ford. Wanted to make a trade for Bijan involving Kyron. Am I reaching too much? No, I mean, I think a player like Bijan Brees, like, I mean, you can try. If you have C-Mac and one of those 2 guys, But, I mean, your starting lineup looks good, and you have a really good bench. So I don't really know that I'd move off of anything here. This is a pretty loaded squad. But, yeah, I mean, if you wanna move Kyron I mean, I to get Bijan, what are you gonna have to give up is the question. Because yeah, I mean, Kyron is a good start, second round running back, um, unless he like fell because of the punt return stuff to the 3rd, or I think there were some drafts where Kyron was falling to like the 4th, which is insane to me. But I mean, what you're gonna give like Waddle, Rice, or Dell, and Kyron at least. That's the thing is a perceived value on Bijan or Brees Hall is so high. It's pretty much like they're in a position where they can offer pretty much what you should be trading for C-Mac almost. So yeah, should I even go after any trades? I don't think I would. Your team is really good. really good. I mean, you've got 3 wide receivers I really like on the bench and 3 good running backs to have on the bench too. So, and the starting lineup looks great. So I don't think you need to. Pick 2 for wide receiver 2 and flex. We got McLaurin, Pickens, and Ford. Full PPR, I probably just roll Scary Terry and Pickens here. But I do like Ford. Like, I think Ford is a player that you can flex this week. I think the volume is just going to be great. I like the Browns in that matchup as a whole. I mean, I don't dislike the Cowboys, but I like the Browns offense. I probably in full PPR just roll with the 2 wide receivers. I mean, preferably in full PPR, I'm trying to flex wide receivers. So, I mean, obviously one of them is going to be in your wide receiver 2 spot. So, yeah, I probably just go McLaurin Pickens. After picking C-Mac in my draft, Johnny D, that's me. That's my name, except I have no H. What's up, Johnny D? Most of the quality tier wide receivers were gone. We landed Olave, Collins, Higgins as my core receivers. Is that a good core to run with? Not that high on Olave. Yeah, I'm completely fine with that. The volume for Olave is fine. Like, I know people don't feel great about this offense or great about Derek Carr. I get it. But yeah, I'm still there with Olave. When you look at last season, double digits in every game but 1, 2, 3, 4 that he played in. I mean, that's about as consistent as you get. And then really down the stretch there, 18, 16, 12, didn't play week 15, 23, didn't do anything in the fantasy championship, but that was still a pretty good run there at the end of the season. So I think this offense is going to be better this year in terms of play calling. So I'm okay with the Laves. I get it. Last night, my final draft, league number 5 with the community, I ended up with the Olave as my wide receiver 1, and like I get it. I don't know. It just doesn't feel great. The ceiling maybe not high, but the consistency is there. And wide receiver 16 last year, it's like just on the fringe of being the wide receiver 15. If he played that week 15 game or whatever it was against the Giants, he probably would have finished as top 15 wide receiver. So it's one of those ugly picks that I think is still good. But Olave, Collins, Higgins, I am okay with. I like Nico and I like T. Higgins this year. So, yeah. Have a Burrow stack. I mean, that certainly doesn't hurt. Dame. Week 1, I had Bijan and A-Chain as RBs, flex 2, Reed, Mostert, and Ford. I'd probably roll with Jaden Reed. Is this our league where we traded? Or is this a different league? It is our league, isn't it? I would start Reed though. Going up against that Philly secondary, which we need to see it to believe it. Is it actually improved? Don't know. Yeah, it's got to be Reed, especially full PPR, right? I mean, I think Mostert and Ford are both good plays this week, and I definitely like both of them. But at the end of the day, yeah, I would roll Reed out there against Philly. Kicker question: Stream Santos, Bass, Dicker, or Koo? Good question. I would go with Dicker the kicker, and I think the value here is you pick up a player who could be a starter all year long. Like, I think this is a good matchup against the Raiders. Like, I don't really think it's going to be a super pretty matchup between the Raiders and Chargers. I might be wrong on this, and I do think that the Chargers could end up putting up a lot of points, but I just feel like this is going to be a game where a kicker could benefit in. But like I said, I think also if Dicker's out there, he could end up being a guy that you start all season long. So I probably just roll with him. We did drop our must start kicker video today for those of you guys who need it. So Pete with I think 7 kickers, 5 must starts, and then 2 streamers. So I know he has Dicker on there, but I'll drop that in the chat. And just a reminder, we have start sits at every position: running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, every matchup, every player live on the channel. Must start week 1 kickers, including streamers. Must start week 1 defenses, including streamers too. Sorry, Tommy. You need 2. So yeah, Reed and probably Reed and Mostert. I mean, I think Ford is fine. If you want to diversify, this is the tough thing because you have A-Chain. If you want to diversify out of that matchup, you can. But I've been saying it throughout the week. I had the Jaguars and the Dolphins circled. I do like Ford a lot. That's what's tough though. That's tricky. I don't really personally worry too much. Like if you're committed to the Dolphins, you're committed to the Dolphins. If they have a bad week, I mean, you kind of have to just live with it. I think if you're going after multiple players in the league, whether it's the Lions or the Niners or the Dolphins or whoever, I think you still have to look at it like, oh, this is the higher scoring offense. Like I like Ford a lot, but the Dolphins, I expect to put up more points than the Browns this week. I'd probably just go Reed and Mostert. But if you want to start Ford because it bothers you, I think Ford's still gonna have a really good week. So ended up with Warren. I don't know why I said it like that. And Chase Brown as RB2. Who should I start? I would start Jaylen Warren because I think his volume is going to be better. We don't, once again, we don't really have any indication that like there's going to be enough volume week 1 for Chase Brown that we can like feel confident starting him. I mean, we just don't know what this split looks like. And I guess you could argue the same for the Steelers running backs because this is a new offense with Arthur Smith. But we've seen the Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris split before. And I mean, Jaylen Warren is coming off of the injury. He did practice today. So, I mean, if you're worried about that, I mean, maybe they do spell him a bit in this matchup, but yeah, I just let me know if you guys feel differently, but I'm not confident starting Chase Brown in week 1. We'll have to see. Like I got to see it to believe it. And I would hope in most circumstances, if you drafted Chase Brown, you don't need to start him as your RB2. I think I just go Warren. Swans, full PPR. I got C-Mac and Bijan. Chase and Evans. I need a flex. Etienne or Collins. Jeez. Team's loaded. Yeah, I would definitely keep C-Mac, Bijan, Chase, and Evans against Washington in. If it's full PPR, I probably flex Nico Collins because per usual, I prefer to flex the wide receiver position. So I would roll Collins. But once again, I like this Dolphins-Jags matchup. I'm going to do this every week. I'm going to have 1 or 2 matchups that I'm trying to exploit because generally speaking, there's at least 2, if not 3 or 4 matchups every week where there's a high scoring affair and almost everyone from a fantasy perspective does well, So I generally have 1 or 2 games to play a little bit safer throughout the week. Every week throughout the season that I kind of just look at and like, this is where I'm taking a chance. And I do really like that Jaguars Dolphins matchup this week, but it's not, I don't dislike the Texans Colts, although the secondaries were better last year, at least in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So, I full PPR. Once again, another thing I always say is flex wide receivers. So I'll go Nico Collins, and I'm also personally just high on Nico. Like Nico's one of my most drafted players this year, so I'll go Nico. Flex Javonte or Ridley. Yeah, I mean full PPR, Tommy. I probably flex Ridley, but I think you could flex Javonte. I expect the Seahawks defense to be better this year, but they did struggle against the run last year significantly. They have the second most fantasy points, if I'm not mistaken, to opposing running backs. So I would probably, if you want a safer floor, go Javonte. If you want upside, go Ridley. Luke, what's up, man? Full PPR, start 2. We got Moss, Chuba, Javonte, Brian. Which Brian? Brian Robinson? And the Gus Bus, I probably start Moss and Gus Bus. I think you could go Moss and Javonte if you wanted, but I will go ahead and go Zach Moss and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards against the Raiders, I think, is too good of a matchup to ignore. He's one of those players this week that I have circled. The Raiders 24th most fantasy points allowed to running backs last year. So, Gus Bus at home, tough to pass up. And I just think Zach Moss at home against the Patriots, a play that I really like this week. But I do like Javonte this week. Jason, full PPR. Start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a flex. I've got Olive. I've got Alave, MH, London Gibbs, A-Chain, ETN. Whew. Yeah. It's full PPR. Jeez. I mean, this is a circumstance where I definitely consider benching a wide receiver. Okay. When we're looking at a lineup where you have the potential to start London, A-Chain, and ETN, I mean, maybe you could make the argument against ETN here and go Olave, MH, London, Gibbs, A-Chain. But I think I go Olave, and then you flip a coin. Who do you like more, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Draco? I like London a lot week 1. I think I'd start all 3 running backs, Olave, and then whichever wide receiver you prefer. I don't really want to sit Marvin Harrison Jr. week 1, though. So it's either you sit ETN or you sit one of the 2 wide receivers there that you don't like. But yeah, the upside that you get there with those 3 running backs is pretty high. Rate my team. We got C-Mac, Gibbs, Adams, Laporta, Stroud, Pickens, Terry, Stevenson, Romadunze, Sutton, Moss, Ford, McConkey. Then you've got Cincinnati and Bates. So, are you? When you say Bates, is there a kicker named Bates? Or is that Jesse Bates? Are you streaming a defensive player? That's the one thing I don't. I don't play in any IDP leagues. It's been a really long time since I did, but I'm assuming it's Jesse Bates or Jake Bates, the Lions kicker. Oh, it might be Jake Bates. I'm like on a mission now to figure this out without looking at the chat. Oh, it is the Lions kicker. Okay, I looked at the chat. Interesting. What other kickers are out there? That might be an interesting move, but I don't know if I want to trust him week 1. All right, rating the team. I mean, you can do anything a kicker. Like kicker doesn't really bother me too much, but you're starting Stroud, C-Mac, Gibbs, Adams, Terry, Laporta, flexing Pickens. So that leaves Stevenson, Rome, Sutton, Moss, Ford, Ladd on the bench. Not bad. And you can defense kicker, you can move every week. So yeah, I mean, it's a solid team. It's a good. There's not really anything missing here. Maybe like more wide receiver depth. But I like Sutton. I think Adunze is fine. Like maybe over Moss if you have Ford and Stevenson. I prefer a wide receiver if it's full PPR. But not really anything wrong with this team. I'd probably give this team a 9. You're not worried about CMC not staying healthy? No. I don't really like worry about that with any player. Maybe if there's a guy like a Christian Watson, you know, like a player who's hurt all the time. But yeah, it's like we kind of give Christian McCaffrey, some people do, this label of like being hurt all the time. And he's been fully healthy the last 2 seasons. You know, and like you're going to have injuries. It's for running backs and wide receivers, veterans, like you're going to have injuries pop up. And when I say veteran, like really from the start, you know, but especially veterans. I mean, like you look at Tyreek Hill. Hill's been on the injury report. You know, he's off it now, but he's been on the week 1 injury report for days. You know, like are we worried about Tyreek Hill not staying healthy? Hill was hurt more than once last year, too. Had 2 different injuries last year. A lot of these guys play through injury. So no, it doesn't bother me. Jaden Daniels or Jared Goff week 1. I will go Goff at home against a bad Rams secondary. In the dome, just give me Goff. I mean, I like Jaden Daniels, but this is why you drafted Goff behind Jaden Daniels is like, let's just sit back and see. And I mean, maybe Jaden Daniels puts up 20 fantasy points this week, but he's on the road. I'm not necessarily scared of the Bucs defense, but their front 7 the past year or 2. Todd Bowles defense, like, you know, I like the Buccaneers in that matchup, so I'll go Goff. Alan, what's going on, man? Good to have you tonight, and it's good to be back. It's week 1, baby. If you need anything, let me know. Appreciate it. Have Javonte in over Ridley currently. Somehow I have Ridley in 2 leagues. Flex Coleman or Ridley. I would flex Ridley over Coleman because, like, you know, we're still expecting Ridley to be the wide receiver 1 on that team. Where with Coleman, like, it might happen, might not happen. We got to find out. I still think, like, if you're forced to start a Bills wide receiver in the flex this week, you can. But I just don't know that I absolutely want to this week. You know? Let's just kind of see how that volume works out. I go Ridley. What are your thoughts on these handcuff RBs for the rest of the season full PPR? Jalen Wright, Trey Benson, Corum, Charbs. Who would you drop or trade? I mean, tough thing with the handcuff is like I could say I like Blake Corum the best, and then James Conner can tear an ACL Sunday, and then Trey Benson was the best option here, you know? Or A-Chain can bruise his knee, and then Jalen Wright was the best option, although Mostert would still be in the way there. But Um, I would say out of these, I like Corum the best because I think he has the best likelihood to get immediate work even when Kyron is healthy. So I'll go Corum is my favorite. Everyone else I think is, I mean, you're just looking at pure handcuffs. We didn't really get that involvement out of Charbs last year that we wanted. All the coach speak right now is pointing towards Zach Charbonnet, or excuse me, towards Kenneth Walker. So the preseason wasn't really kind of Trey Benson. Is Trey Benson the RB2 on this team even? Is Amari Democardo? Michael Carter got cut, so I don't think we got to worry about him. But there's one more running back on that team, DJ Dallas. But I don't know. I mean, I think Benson is still a handcuff. There were just points in the offseason where it was like the coaches were trying to make it not look that way, apparently. But I'd probably go Corum, Benson, Wright, Charbs. I think you could argue Charbs over Wright. Problem is if like Mostert goes down, then it's A-Chain. I don't know. I don't know what you can really get out of trading these guys, though, unless you're just going to a super RB needy team. And it's like, what do you really get in return for a handcuff running back? Who would I drop? It really depends on what you need and who you're dropping them for. So, Fred, should I drop J.K. Dobbins for Jaleel McLaughlin? So I guess Jaleel McLaughlin has to be one of the more popular names floating around the fantasy community right now. And I'm a Javonte Williams believer. So, I don't know. You're kind of looking at two RB2s on their respective teams here, but I would still say I think the Chargers will be a more efficient offense, and we know they're a run-heavy offense. So if you believe in J.K. Dobbins, I'd probably just stick with J.K. Dobbins. But you could, if you like Jaleel McLaughlin more, that's fine. It's really down to preference here. What's your prediction for Tyreek Hill's fantasy week? I think it's going to have a great week. I think it's going to be a double-digit performance. I mean, you got to have him locked in. I don't know how. I mean, the ceiling's as high as 40 points. It's Tyreek Hill, so safe floor, high ceiling, good matchup, good game script. You're starting Hill. I don't know what my exact prediction is, but my prediction for Tyreek Hill week 1 is good. Jaden Daniels over Rodgers. Yeah, I mean, like I know I just said a couple of questions ago, I go Goff over Daniels, but Rodgers, a tougher matchup on the road coming off the injury. I go for the upside in this situation, and I'll go Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. double-digit points this week, but I don't know how high the ceiling is. I do think game script will help MH this week because I think they're going to be playing from behind, but they are going to keep it competitive is what I would say. So, I'll say 12 points if he scores a touchdown more than that. I'm all in on A-Chain, but maybe me trading you Henry for A-Chain wasn't the greatest because now I have Ford on my bench. Still like the trade, just saying. Well, I mean, at least you have depth. Because what? You've got Bijan, A-Chain, Mostert, yeah, and Ford. I mean, once again, depth this time of year is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. What's your thoughts on the Kyron returning kickoff situation now that Corum is returning punts? Are people overreacting? Yeah, I think they're overreacting. I mean, we've seen like viable starters in fantasy return kicks and punts before and it not be an issue at all, and sometimes be beneficial if your league gives extra points or counts kick and punt return yardage. So, I mean, guys like Cooper Kupp, Antonio Brown, Julian Edelman, like I mean, I have always been of the opinion, I will say, I prefer those guys to not be used on special teams. It's like if Cooper Kupp gets absolutely leveled, like, and gets hurt on, like, is it worth it? But this is also the effect here of we had the rule changes with kick returns. So you're going to see more dynamic players, I think, on the field during kick return. So it makes sense. And I almost worry about uh punt returns. I feel like they're more volatile. So I think I worry about them more than anything. But um I'm not overreacting to it. I'll put it that way. What are your thoughts on me having Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr.? Is it a good stack? Yeah, perfectly fine stack. Stacks like in redraft, nothing crazy. They're fine to have. They don't hurt you. They probably help you, but it's not like best ball where it's proven to help advance in the playoffs or anything. So overall, yeah, good solid stack for sure. Home team went from 10 to 12, my old work spot. One of the people who joined is friends with DJ Dallas. Nice. Tell him we want to get DJ Dallas on the channel. Get him on the show. Tone Bear, Flex, Alave, Rice, Waddle. Whew. If you can only flex one, I probably still go with the volume from Alave. I probably rank these guys Alave, Waddle, Rice, but I like all three. Alave, volume, Waddle, matchup, Rice. Not a great matchup, but has the volume. And these guys could outscore each other. That's sometimes the problem, it's taking a bit of a gamble. Bunny Hop, what's up, bro? Love you too, man. I hope all is well your way. Good to hear from you. I saw you comment on the wide receiver video. Got your Packers playing Friday night. We got Kyler starting, Dobbs on my bench. Would you drop Stafford for Wicks, Palmer, or McLaughlin? I mean, here's the thing you have to ask yourself, and we've seen it in the chat earlier tonight too. If you are a Kyler believer, like where do you? I mean, I'm not a Kyler believer, but it's like, where is your faith in Kyler not getting hurt? Because if it's, I mean, you're committed to Kyler Murray. It's like if you commit to Anthony Richardson, and you drafted a second quarterback. Why'd you draft the second quarterback? If you're gonna go ahead and drop them when they're kind of your like insurance policy, so to speak, then you probably want to hold on to that. But if you're in a situation where you're looking at like your flex, and you feel like you need help, then I think getting a guy like Josh Palmer is worth it. I would prefer to get Palmer here since you already have Dobbs and already have some exposure to that Packers wide receiver room. And I like Wicks, and sure, Jaleel McLaughlin's fine. But Palmer has the best shot here at being a true wide receiver one. Like, I know a lot of people think it's Lad McConkey, and it might be, but Palmer has that chemistry with Justin Herbert. And I think if anything, maybe Lad ends up with more receptions or more targets, but Palmer's still going to have nice red zone upside. So, if you do drop Stafford, I would do it for Palmer, but like I said, I mean, I think if you drafted a Kyler, a Richardson, or maybe a guy like Tua, or even just someone who maybe you think is more volatile, maybe it doesn't have to do with injury, and you have a guy like Stafford, you can always fight for the waiver wire. But yeah, I think Stafford's going to have a good year. Stafford and Cousins are the two like who maybe didn't even get drafted in your league, who I'm like, they might in the first couple weeks be off the waiver wire and gone, or they might be really mediocre. I don't think there's much of it in between, but I mean, week 1, Stafford gets the Lions. Secondary not great there. So, Kyler's bye week's not till week 11. Kyler's going to face Buffalo, the Rams, the Lions, Commanders. That's a pretty solid first 4 games for Kyler before he's at San Francisco, at Green Bay, which you should still expect game script to help there. Then he gets the Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, Jets. So really, I just circle that week 5 matchup against the Niners and week 10 against the Jets as difficult matchups. But once again, game script will probably help. And then you look at Stafford. He's got Green Bay week 5. I don't know if you want to root against your own team, but and Miami week 10. So both of those are like good competitive matchups where game script should be there. So if you're looking at the bye weeks for Kyler, I don't know. I think I might keep Stafford. But I do think I like Josh Palmer a lot. So it's tough. Jaden Daniels is like top 10 on analyst list for the week, even though the bad matchup. I think because of the rushing upside, I do agree. I mean, I think Jaden Daniels is one of these names that I don't dislike, but let's see. I mean, Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, Hurts, Stroud, Richardson, Burrow, Prescott, Kyler, Jordan Love, Tua, Goff. I would put all in front of Jaden Daniels and probably Stafford. So that's 12 quarterbacks. But yeah, it's because of the rushing upside and because of the hype and everything. I mean, and I like Jaden Daniels, but I'm like, if you have to start Jaden Daniels this week, I think it's fine. But I mean, I think we're underestimating a lot of quarterbacks. Like Tua, for people are like acting like Tua's going to have like a 16-point game, and I think even Trevor Lawrence could be sneaky. I like Caleb Williams at home this week more than I like Jaden Daniels on the road too. So, I think there's enough quarterbacks you could put in front of Jaden Daniels this week. And I think we have to remind ourselves, like I talked about this last night, like Stroud is the perfect example of like Stroud was the QB 11 last year. Great in fantasy. Different style quarterback than Jaden Daniels. But Stroud averaged 18.6 fantasy points per game last year. Okay. So when you start to look at some quarterbacks who were in similar positions last year, you might find it kind of interesting. One of them would be Russell Wilson at 18.6. Trevor Lawrence had 18.9. Tua had 18.1. Herbert had 18.9. And Goff had 18.7. So I just think it's interesting because all those other quarterbacks we just named are like being viewed as lower tier. And like Stroud is in a much better position this year than those guys. But yeah, I just think the ceiling for a rookie quarterback is what it is, Now you can look at Anthony Richardson last year and say, well, Anthony Richardson averaged like, what was it? 23, 24 points per game. I just think it's a situation we sit back and watch if we can this week. Mason start Zeke or Dowdle FML. Flip a coin. Who do you think's gonna stumble into the end zone? I think I like Dowdle, but I could see it. I could see Zeke vulturing to the touchdown this week and frustrating everyone. So, who you like better for the season, Barkley or JT? I will stick with my off-season ranking. I'll go Barkley, but it is super close. Cinnabon, what's up? Is Rice worth starting over Waddle or MH? I don't think so. I like Rice a lot. But Waddle, I love this matchup. MH Jr. volume, I think, will be slightly better. Good game script for Rice, though. I don't think Rice is going to have a bad week, but I'll say no. But I'm scared to drop Stafford. I think he could have an MVP season. Yeah, it's a tough decision there. I think I keep Stafford and Kyler if I'm you. What's going on, Captain Joe King? Huge fan of the show. Already sub. Appreciate that. Quick question. Should I start Flowers against the Chiefs or McLaurin? So, yeah, once again, I think you can go Flowers here. I mean, it's not like Tampa Bay was necessarily great against opposing wide receivers last year. So I think what scares me with McLaurin this week, well, I still think he's fine to start. I mean, Tampa Bay was gave the 23rd most fantasy points to wide receivers last year, but what scares me is like, what does Tampa Bay's defense really have to worry about outside of Terry McLaurin? Like, there's no other wide receiver on this team that should really, really cause any defensive issues. Like, he's got to strap up Terry McLaurin, and that should be it. So, it's tough. I probably go Flowers. Daniels, Jacobs, Walker, Hill, Wilson, Andrews, Flowers, 12 team full PPR. Not bad. Still think Jaden Daniels is fine at quarterback if he's your quarterback. I'm just saying, like, week 1, I think we should tamper expectations. I have Jaden Daniels in like 2, if not 3 leagues. And one of them super flex league, but Jacobs, Walker, great. Love both these guys. Their volume is going to be great all season long. Hill, Garrett Wilson, beautiful. Flowers, fine in the flex. Andrews, fine at tight end. Solid team, solid 9. You also got Higgins. Oh, Higgins, Mostert, Sutton, Spears, Coleman. Yeah, this is a solid 9. I love having the ability to flex Higgins. I love Mostert on the bench, Sutton on the bench, Spears, good. Coleman, Singletary are fine too. I mean, for a 12-team quarterback, good. Dried Ocean, deep team, so don't or deep league. I've seen it all. I've played in a 20-man league. I guess I haven't seen it all because some of you guys come in here and like, I'm in a 32-man league. I'm like, what? Or I'm in a league where you pick one NFL team and you only get their players. Like, what? Dortch, Leggett, Corum. I think taking the chance on Blake Corum would be kind of fun here. I don't want to trust Xavier Leggett in week 1 against the Saints. I think you're praying for a touchdown. And honestly, with Greg the Torch Dortch, you're praying for a touchdown too. And I think Michael Wilson is a wide receiver too on that team. So, I mean, I would just go Blake Corum, and at least we've heard of him like recently being involved. Does your league allow for kick return points or whatever? Punt returns, whatever he's doing? I mean, full PPR, I guess you could go Dortch. I think between the 2 wide receivers, I'd rather go Dortch. It's just super, super tough. Who'd you start this week, Goff or Jordan Love? What's up, Spencer? I will go Jordan Love. I do like Goff a lot this week, though. But I'm all in on J-Lo. I'll go Jordan Love. Good competitive game script. I mean, you're going to get a good competitive game script in both of these games, I guess I should say. So, I think you could go Goff. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I prefer Jordan Love. I think if you drafted Jordan Love, like, you want him to be your starter, right? So I'd probably just roll into the week with him. And yeah, I like that game script for the Eagles Packers a bit more, I think. I don't know. Do I? I do think that the Lions Rams game is going to be really good, but I think I go Jordan Love. Chat, what do you guys think? Have you bought your Jaden Daniels jersey? No, I have not. No. Maybe I'll do it by the end of the season. I was thinking about that earlier today, not Jaden Daniels specifically, but how I want some sort of new. I haven't bought a jersey in a long time. So maybe JD is up next. All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and wind down here. We're over an hour. I will not be on before Thursday night football, but I think I'm going to try and do like a post Thursday night Q&A. If not, we have content coming out tomorrow, content coming out Friday. I might just sit back and watch the game tomorrow. I'm not sure, but we have start sits at every single position: running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, every player, every matchup out for week 1. We have must start kickers and streams. We have must start defenses and streams. And we'll continue to have content coming out for the rest of the week. So I will say most of the Q&A streams this year will be about an hour to an hour and a half, just with my workload, continuing to make content for the channel. And of course, working full time for Fantasy Endgame as well. So I'm going to try and stretch some of these Q&As when I can, most likely on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings. So that's where we're at. But make sure you guys are checking out the videos throughout the week, dropping comments, letting me. I do get back to every single comment. So if you guys need anything, you watching one of the start set videos, you drop a comment, I will get back to you when I can. So more likely you'll get an answer from me in a YouTube comment than like on the Discord, or like if you message me on Discord or Instagram or TikTok or something, I probably will not respond to or I might not even see it. So best ways to get fantasy advice are going to be in the live streams and in the YouTube comments. All right, guys. So if I don't talk to you before tomorrow night, good luck if you have any Ravens Chiefs players in your starting lineup. And just make sure to sit back and enjoy the game. It is the start of fantasy, but it is also starting the NFL season and start of football, which is always fun. And just, yes, fantasy's life, but don't let it overtake the fun of the game. So everyone have a great night. Tomorrow's video will be week 1 wide receiver winners, wide receivers that you need to start. And then I think we'll have a trade video Friday that'll go out in the morning before that Brazil game between the Eagles and the Packers, and the video out Saturday. So make sure you guys are staying posted, and that'll do it. So hit the like, do all the YouTube stuff. Links are down below. Love you guys. Love this community. Love the Catch fam. I'll talk to you guys soon. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, yes, odd ear on the Catch, and peace.